Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Craig T. Bracken Public Safety Operations Building. Who's having their first time here today? Thank you very much. If you've never been here before, we're honored to have you here. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Matthew Hicks. I work for your Twin Falls Police Department. Today marks the anniversary not only of Officer Craig Bracken's death, but a continuation of the traditions we have here at the TFPD to honor his passing and his family's sacrifice to our community. Our department has made a conscious effort in the last few years to honor our past and recognize those special officers that have made positive contributions to our organization and our city. While we've identified dozens of officers that have made an impressive impact during their careers, no one has inspired us more than Officer Craig Bracken. We're fortunate to have special guests here today, including members of the Bracken family. Pam Odell and her husband Mike Dupong are here. Pam, do you mind raising your hand? Thank you both for being here again. Pam is Craig Bracken's granddaughter. As some of you may know, her mother, Virginia Odell, was about 9 years old when her father was killed. And I got to know Virginia quite well before we lost her in 2015, but she was always a frequent visitor at memorial events honoring her father's passing. We miss her every day. I also want to acknowledge we have Dr. Chris Scholes and his wife Anna here. Chris, thank you both for being here. Chris is actually the grandnephew of Craig Bracken and one of this project's major sponsors. Thank you both for being here. I would also like to thank Craig Kingsbury, our recently retired chief of police, for being here, for his support over the last 9 years to begin and continue this tradition. His backing of this project was instrumental in its success, and it would simply not have happened without him. Thank you, Chief. And Loretta, thank you for being here too. I'd like to thank my executive assistant, Jennifer Church, for everything she did to make the stay special for everybody. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Greg Voetsch, who envisioned and led this preservation project. Greg came up with this idea. He sought both department and community support, and based on his determination, we are standing here today. Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. For those of you who were out at the memorial at the gravesite today, you're going to hear a lot of repetition about what happened during that night. But what I'd like to do is start out a little bit before that, give Craig Bracken a little bit more about his career and things that happened to him before joining the police department. I don't know a lot, so it'll be brief, but he was born on February 11th, 1894 in Bernard, Kansas. He moved to Twin Falls in 1913 and started a vulcanizing shop. He was self-employed during that. In 1917, this thing called World War I came around, and he entered the draft, and a short time after ended up fighting for our country in World War I. When he came back, I don't know a lot about what happened right away, although I know that for several years before he joined the police force, he had his own service station and was a part of that. In 1936, there was kind of a shakeup with the department where, story is, it had a little bit of corruption within the department. So the mayor at the time, Duncan Johnson, hired a new police chief named Howard Gillette. And he was charged with cleaning up the corruption in the department and the city, and apparently he did a good job because he served until 1962 with the department as chief. 2 years off for working with the FBI, but other than that, it was the entire time. Right after he was hired, he hired an officer, or a gentleman, Craig Bracken, to become an officer and help with the cleanup of the corruption and everything in the city and the department. All indications are it was just normal police officer during that time until 1938 when a major case happened here in Twin Falls. There was a report of somebody who was murdered in their car in front of the Park Hotel. They began investigating, and it turned out that he was a traveling jeweler from Salt Lake City. So they were doing some investigation, could not find out much, and then they started finding out a little bit more. They talked to a local jeweler here in town, and he said he didn't know him, had no connections with him. More and more information started coming out, and it turns out, long story short, was the jeweler had an acquaintance with the jeweler from Twin Falls or Salt Lake City, had a very close relationship with the jeweler here in town, and actually was in town, and part of what he was doing was to collect some money, the substantial debt that the local jeweler owed him. So the whole investigation questions didn't add up. So at that time, Chief Gillette had Officer Bracken go down into the basement of the local jeweler to see if he could hear anything, find anything for evidence in the case. He got down there about 4 a.m. in the morning, and about 9 a.m., the jeweler came down and went to the wall, took out a piece of block wall, reached inside, grabbed a folded piece of cloth that had about $15,000 worth of jewels in it, which was stolen from the traveling jeweler. He came out, he introduced himself as Officer Bracken, made the arrest, took him to the station. Subsequently, there was a search. The murder weapon, 25 caliber revolver, was found. He was subsequently tried and convicted of the murder. So that was a big case here that Bracken was involved with just a couple years into his career. The twist to all of this is the local jeweler was named Duncan Johnson, the mayor who hired Chief Gillette to come in and clean up the department in the town. And then he ends up being arrested for the murder of the traveling jeweler. After that, we'll move forward about a year to the incident that happened that night. Officer Bracken and partner Officer Barclay were out, and at the time they had a light up on the building. And whenever they needed an officer to come to the station, they turn on the light and they would come in. They called that at the time answering the light. So in the sheets you have is a sheet that I transcribed from Officer Barclay's handwritten statement. I left all of the punctuation, all of the things that he crossed out, all the things he added in. I left it in so that you would have an idea of Barclay's state of mind the night that this happened, I'm sure to a good friend of his. So anyway, they were out, they answered the light, they come in. A gentleman by the name of Spencer Robinson was given a report of a stolen vehicle. They got the card that had the description of the vehicle and the license plate, and they started out to see if they could find it. Well, at that time, a call came in from G.W. Tarr Jr., who owned Home Service Station, which was about a mile west of Twin Falls on Highway 30. And he reported that he was just held up, his service station was just held up, and the two suspects were heading back into Twin Falls in a car that matched the description of the stolen vehicle that was being reported. So the two officers got in the car with the local citizen in the back seat. They started heading up Main Avenue towards 5 Points West, or West 5 Points, which, for those who don't know, is where the intersection of Washington and Addison come together. And there's Main Street came into there and tied in, which made the fifth intersection in there. Now you can turn from Addison down, but you can't come out to that point that way. When they got to on their way, Robinson told the officers that he had a loaded gun in the car, and that was the one that was used in the robbery. So when they got to the intersection, Robinson saw his car turning south on Washington Street. He identified the car, so they followed it. They turned on 4th Avenue West and turned on the lights and sirens, pulled the car over about the mid-block of the 400 block. When they got there, Officer Bracken got out on the passenger side and was moving forward. Officer Barclay was coming up on the driver's side. As they approached, Officer Bracken was heard to say, "Sit still, boys, we're officers." He got up close, and either he was opening the door or Hale opened the door, but that's when the gunfire started, and Officer Bracken was hit once in the chest, left side, just below the heart. They returned fire. Officer Barclay returned fire, and his first shot was to the driver, who was Hale, hit him in the head. He slumped over in the car on the wheel next to the door. Williams, the other suspect, took off over Bracken's body and took off between a couple houses. Officer Barclay finished emptying his revolver with the last 5 shots, hitting him as he was fleeing. He came around, Barclay came around to where Bracken was laying, and Officer Bracken said, "Get that man, Ken, he shot me." So with the most important part was making sure that Officer Bracken got to the hospital. So they got him in the car, took him to the hospital. Another gentleman went back to the station to let him know what was going on. Officer Barclay and a couple others heard somebody hollering for help in the alleyway, so they went. They found Williams, the suspect, who was injured, and when they got to him, they asked him where the gun was. He pointed under the car, and he says, "It's under the car." They were able to get him to the street, searched him, got the gun, got him back to the street. Officer Barclay went back to the stolen vehicle, and the driver, Hale, was gone. And he was found the next day and arrested, hitchhiking out of town with a bandage around his head. Apparently, it was a grazing shot, knocked him out. While they were out searching for Williams, he came to and took off and got away for the night, but they got him the next day. So that's the events of the night. Officer Bracken was taken to the hospital, subsequently died about 27 hours later, May 8th, 1939. At this point, I'll move forward in the story about 70 years. So 70 years later, Chief Hicks, I got it right, not Captain, Chief Hicks, at the time in 2007 was working on a history of the Twin Falls Police Department. So he went to the Twin Falls County Museum and asked if they had any artifacts or any information on the early years of Twin Falls Police Department. And the lady he talked to said, no, we really don't have anything, but we have a lot of stuff in storage. And as we go through it, I'll look, and if we find anything, I'll give you a call. So he says, great. He started to leave. And as he started leaving, she said, well, wait a second. There was a lady that just turned in a box, donated a box to us. And I think she said her husband or father was a member of law enforcement. And so she said, you're lucky, you're willing to look through that if you'd like. And so he said, sure. So he started looking through. He said, do you know the family name? And she said, yeah, it was Bracken, something like that. And he goes, could it have been Bracken? And she goes, yeah, that was it. It was Bracken. So he started looking through the box and was at first a little disappointed. He didn't see anything in there that would really help with the history of Twin Falls Police Department. And then when he got to the bottom, he saw the uniform, the green uniform, World War I, uniform. And at the time, he didn't think anything of it because the only pictures that we have, you can see on the other side of the case of Bracken, were black and white. So he just assumed that it was a blue uniform. So when he saw the green, it didn't click right away. Then as he started taking a closer look at the uniform, he noticed a hole in the jacket and a corresponding hole in the shirt with blood stains at the exact location where Bracken was hit, on the left side, just below the heart. And at that point, he knew that some police departments wore World War I uniforms during that time, and he knew right then that this was the uniform that Officer Bracken was wearing the night that he was killed. And as he puts it, he felt like Indiana Jones discovering the Holy Grail. And because for him, and I'm sure for most, this is probably the most historic piece of anything for this department, is to have the uniform. But the amazing part of this story, that I think anyway, is if he would have gone, this is 70 years after the incident, if he would have gone in a week earlier, the box would not have been donated. If he would have gone in a week later, would have been down in storage, nobody would have known about it. And when it was opened later, they may not have ever made that connection between Officer Bracken and that uniform and the one he was wearing that night. So after 70 years, this little week or two period, just he happened to be there at the right time. So I think that's the most amazing part of this whole story. So my connection with it is about 4.5 years ago, I went through their Citizens Police Academy. At the beginning, they talk about the department, what they require from their officers, for attitude and everything else. Their logo, of course, is Pride. You can read it in one of the other rooms. And then Captain Hicks at the time started talking about some of the history of the department. He got to the Bracken story, and as he mentioned the uniform and locating the uniform, he went over the table and he pulled off I believe it was Men's Warehouse suit bag, and underneath was the uniform. And I remember the impact that it made on me. And he was talking about they wanted to someday try and display the case, preserve it for future generations of not only the citizens of Twin Falls, but also for every generation of police officers coming through the department as a memorial and memory of an officer that gave his life, but also as a reminder, when you go out there, be careful because this could happen to you. So about 1.5 years ago, my wife went through the Citizens Police Academy, and same stories, Hicks talking about the same history, talk about the discovery of the uniform, lifts up the same Men's Warehouse bag, uniform still there. And I remember it made the same impact on me as it did the first time I saw it. So I was thinking about it during their whole academy class, and on their graduation, I approached Chief Kingsbury at the time and Captain Hicks at the time, and asked them if our lodge, Twin Falls Masonic Lodge, could spearhead and organize a fundraiser to try and get the money for the display case. And I remember they looked at each other and they said, this would be fantastic. We were trying to figure out how to do this over time. We just haven't been able to do it. It would be great. We'll help you any way we can. So that's when the fundraiser started last year. It was amazing. They had their ups and downs, of course, where donations would come in and then they wouldn't. And then it would and it wouldn't. And my goal was to have it done by today. And actually last week is when we finally got the display of the uniform into the case. So it just made it. But that was my goal, to have it done. And luckily it was for today's memorial. On the fundraiser, we had anybody who donated $500 or more would be on a plaque over here on the wall of those who donated, major contributors. I know several of them are here today, so I'd like to read some of the names that are on the plaque. And the first three are the three top contributors. They went above and beyond the $500. And that was Twin Falls Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 22, Rich Stiver and Catherine Swan Stiver of Title Fact, Chris and Anna Scholes from Scholes Dermatology. So those were the three main ones, and I know some of them are here today. Appreciate you being here. The other ones that are on the others that are on the list is Twin Falls Masonic Lodge number 45, Free and Accepted Masons, Greg and Monica Voetsch, Brandon and Roxabeth Voetsch, Paul and Nancy Bowman, J.T. Ramondetta, Mitzi Cheldelin, Cynthia Capellas, Gary and Cindy Tetz, Tommy's Express Car Wash of Twin Falls, Snake River Business Network, Red Robin of Twin Falls, Rotary Club of Twin Falls, Mayor Ruth Pierce, who I know is here today also, and Jake Pierce, Matthew and Jamie Hicks, Twin Falls Rotary After Hours, the law firm of Stephan Quanvig Stone and Trainer, Twin Falls County Historical Society Museum, and we have a representative here. Thank you for coming. Breeze Heating and Air Conditioning, Blue Lakes Rotary, and the City of Twin Falls. So I'd like to give them all a round of applause to help. On top of this, I'd like to thank all those who made the $10, the $20, the $50, the $100 donations. Didn't get their name on the plaque, but we appreciate all those donations because it was all of those together that allowed us to raise the funds, meet our goals, and purchase the case and everything for today. And also like to thank those who shared it on social media, those who sent hundreds of emails out to colleagues and just got the word out to let everybody know, because everybody together culminated in this event that we have today. So I'd like to thank everybody involved. And you all, when you received, I was going to hand this out a little later, but you got the sheet. The front is just basically a history of what was said today. The back is Officer Barclay's statement from the night of the incident, who is Bracken's partner. It was a handwritten statement. It was hard to read. A lot of it crossed out. So what I did is I translated it just into print on Word, and I left everything that he wrote on there. Where he scratched something out, I left it and showed it scratched out. Where he added something in, I put that. I left all the punctuation and the spelling, everything, exactly the way his letter was written that night. And the reason I did it was so that I'm sure Officer Barclay was a good friend of Bracken at the time, being partners and on the same force. But losing that and having that happen that night, I'm sure made a tremendous impact on him. And I think this kind of shows the mindset that he was going through that night and how he was really able to keep the composure and write about what happened that night after these events. So I wanted to get that out just so everybody would have it. Again, thank everybody. I'll turn it back over to Captain Hicks. Chief, I knew it. I knew it. I knew that was going to happen. I was doing good until now. Sorry.
There's just two things I want to say before we unveil the case. The best ideas of any organization do not come from the top. They come from the men and women that actually do the work. So when we were approaching the Fraternal Order of Police about possibly donating this project, one of our officers made the suggestion to place the case in this room. And Brian Caldwell, I don't know if he's here, but he made the argument to make it in this room for a very important reason. You were actually sitting in the patrol briefing room of our police department. So at the beginning of every shift, all the patrol officers that serve your city sit in this room, talk about the day's events and goals, and the very first thing they see when they walk in will be Greg Bracken's uniform. And Brian's idea was that will make a meaningful impact, not only for today, but for decades and decades to come. That every officer that serves this community, the first thing they see before they start their shift will be Officer Bracken's uniform. The second thing I want to say is that before we unveil a case, is I would like to formally recognize Greg. As I stated, this project would simply not have happened without him. Greg, your drive and ambition and your initiative deserve formal recognition. So it is my honor to present you with my very first Twin Falls Police Chief Partnership Award in recognition of your outstanding efforts and your personal sacrifice in researching, canvassing our community, and purchasing and putting this case together for our community. You're helping our department preserve the most meaningful piece of our history, and in recognition of that, sir, I'd like to reward your efforts. Thank you very much. So folks,
Thank you, Chief.
So folks, at this time, I'd actually like to ask Chief Craig Kingsbury to come forward because he was instrumental in this project, and we'll unveil this for you.
Get your cameras ready. It's going to be a historical moment. Grab the black plastic also on the back. Ready?
Folks, we'd like to thank you for coming today. That actually concludes our ceremony. We appreciate you being here to celebrate Craig's life and his sacrifice to our community. Thanks for coming.
I know there's a lot of people here, but anybody who would like to come up and take a closer look at the uniform, feel free to do so. Just remember there's probably going to be a long line of people, so kind of take a look and move through. And I was really happy and honored that both Chief Kingsbury, who this project started under in his last year, and Chief Hicks, who it finished under his first year, could both be the ones that did the unveiling. So thank you both.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you all for coming.
Feel free to come on up. Did you look at those lights? It's just amazing. The only thing I have left to do is in a couple months I'm taking it to the textile conservator and trying to fix a couple of log holes you see on the side. The one right here by the pocket is the one where he was shot, and there's corresponding right down at the bottom. Right there. Yeah, it was 38 caliber, but it doesn't make the whole same hole as it does going through paper. So it's just cloth, so it just kind of nuts through towards the cloth. And then of course the whole